Hey guys, Emily Muccianti here, and in today's video, I have some tips and strategies for intervention teachers or for Gen Ed Tier 1 instructors in how to support your struggling readers with some of the more complex and challenging texts that they have to read in their core content area classes. So stick around. There's a lot of information that's going to come, and I have a little bit of a gift for you at the end. Now, for those of you that don't know me, I am a reading specialist and interventionist. I am over 30 years in education, 27 in the classroom, and I have a lot of information and passion about reading intervention, in particular K-12, quite honestly. So if you'd like to learn more, or you are interested and like what you're hearing in these videos, be sure to go to my website, emilymuccianti.com, and check out our courses. I have a number of different courses that support brand new reading intervention teachers, so you know how to get the ball rolling. Okay, so let's talk about what is happening in today's video. Now, first of all, I want to thank Karen. Karen is a course member of mine, comes to many of our Q&As. We have a great working relationship. Hi, Karen, and thank you for your question. She brought up something really great that I think a lot of us might struggle with. And her question had to do with how can she support her teachers and her students that are struggling readers in middle school, but they only have a readability or a reading level of around a third grade. These are kids that are having to read some pretty complex text. And so I wrote out this email, gave her some tips and strategies, and then thanked her because I said, basically, this is the outline for my next video because I think it is very important and it is very timely. So make sure that you share this video with any of your teachers that could benefit from it. Now, I also want to let you know that the area or the grade levels that we're going to be talking today are really for our older readers. So about fourth grade on up. Our younger kids, at least related to intervention, are still really focused on that side of the simple view of reading, which is the decoding component. Now we're getting into more complex text. So these are some more advanced types of skills. And so these are for our older students. Now, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the problem. Now, the problem is that in Tier 1, all of our students receive content, core area instruction, and materials, curriculum that is at their assigned grade level. That does not mean that it is actually at their reading level. And so those texts can be very, very challenging. And the older we get, the older those students get, the wider the gap becomes between potentially their reading ability and the reading level or complexity of the text that they actually have to work through. But it is a necessary evil. If you are a seventh grader and you are getting seventh grade credit, you have to be able to move through the seventh grade curriculum. Now, how do we do that? In a perfect world, we would always want to try to best match the readability with the student's level, right? That's just not practical. Because if you've got anthologies, you're an English teacher, you've got an anthology, middle school anthology, that is what it is. And that is oftentimes the requirement in your school or your grade level or your district. So what we have to do as teachers is we have to differentiate and scaffold our instruction so that our students can actually access that more complex and challenging text. We can't change the readability for Shakespeare, but we can do things to support our students' understanding and moving through that. The other part of this is that there are some hurdles with our struggling readers that really start with that decoding point and the vocabulary. That doesn't mean, though, that we want them to miss out on all of those really complex ideas, the themes, that sort of thing. So we have to find a way to bridge this gap, and it can be a really, really big gap. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is what is the difference between differentiation and scaffolding. And I don't want to get too crazy with you here, but there is a difference. We oftentimes use the two terms interchangeably, but they are not actually the same. When we differentiate our instruction, and this has to do if you're an intervention teacher, a math teacher, an English teacher, it doesn't even matter. When we differentiate our instruction, we are designing a lesson in a way that is going to the reach each particular student's needs. So that means that we are going to layer our instruction. If we were in a college class and sitting at a lecture and that professor just lectures straight from the text, there's no visual, there's no interaction or anything, there's zero differentiation. That instructor has provided no alternative ways to absorb the content. So the first thing we need to do is design our lessons in a way that we are utilizing a number of different modalities. We're using a lot of different learning styles. We're asking for information in a variety of ways. So it might look like something where we're going to front load our students at the beginning of the lesson. We're going to show some visuals. We're going to have some conversations. We might have some group work. We might have some support materials for them, but we are layering the lesson so that by time the lesson is done, everybody has received that information in a way that they best process it. So we're going to have some things that are visual. We're going to have some discussion. We're going to have some writing and some maybe some illustration, those kinds of things. So that's differentiation. Scaffolding is where we add something else to our lesson that is temporary, but is designed to help the student master that lesson objective. So something like giving your students a graphic organizer so that they can jot their thoughts down is a type of scaffold. This is something that we would like for them to use so that they can get that lesson objective mastered. Another thing you could do when we provide sentence frames for our students. This is something I talk about a lot, especially with my new teachers, but giving sentence frames or paragraph frames for writing is a perfectly good and excellent scaffold. But the thing about a scaffolding is it's meant to be temporary. So we don't want to give paragraph frames, sentence frames every single time. We want to use it to help the student understand what we're asking them to do and then gradually pull that back. So differentiation is about the design of the lesson, and it has to do with our instructional delivery, where scaffolding is something else that we're giving that we eventually want to be able to pull back. And here's the thing with scaffolding. If you don't pull it back, you create learned helplessness. So kids start to rely on these tools and they don't necessarily reach that next step of independence. So we want to be very careful. And when do you pull it back? Depends. It's different for every kid. That's a professional decision. But I hope that gives you a little bit of clarity about what those two differences are. So let me talk to you then about, here are 9 tips. I want to give you 9 tips and a little bonus one at the end for what you can do when you are working with a student who is struggling in your classroom. Let's say, for example, you are a 6th grade teacher and you are reading a very long, complex, maybe it's a novel, it may just be more of a complex type of text. These things can be exceptionally challenging. And so I want to give you some ways that you can help support your students with both differentiation and scaffolding here. Okay, so tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to make sure that you are front loading your students with the vocabulary. We want to pre-teach the vocabulary that our students need in order to access that particular text. This can look differently depending on the types of books or passages that you're reading. You would do this even if you're a social studies teacher, a science teacher. It doesn't even matter. We want to have our students understand the words and the vocabulary that they are going to see throughout the reading. This is going to give them some of that general understanding just to begin with. And it's especially helpful for your English learners. We know that our students who have a number of comprehension deficits, oftentimes the hurdle is the vocabulary. So we want to start with giving them that information ahead of time. And there are some other things I can give you some details shortly. The second tip that I want to encourage you to do is to make sure that you are front loading the background knowledge. If your students are reading something related to, let's say, the Victorian era, you're going to need to give them a number of points about that particular context so that they can understand. So we are going to do things like showing them videos so that they can get some visuals of what this actually looks like. We might be listening to the music from a particular area or era. We are going to build any of that historical significance for that particular content. And I think videos with YouTube and even a lot of your curriculum that you have, there are so many short vetted videos that are appropriate to help you do this. So make sure that you are front loading and building that background knowledge. You know, our students just don't come in with a lot of worldly knowledge. And so when we're asking for complex text, we need to build the knowledge there for them. The third step is to make sure that you are breaking down long text into manageable chunks. If you're working with older students, you don't ever want to give them a novel and say, here, read it. We're going to talk about it in a month. They don't have the stamina for that. We actually have to break down into manageable chunks what those students have to do. And so you can provide different calendars that you are asking for so that you give them timelines on, we're going to read these 2 chapters by this date, but we're going to do things within small, manageable chunks. And while you're doing that, include those little mini summaries in those manageable chunks. We don't want to read something like a novel and not do anything with it until we get to the very end. They're going to forget so much of what is needed from that beginning. But use those read, stop, respond routines so that there is quick and frequent reflection for those small, manageable chunks. Okay, the next tip that I suggest is using graphic organizers. Now, graphic organizers are a type of scaffolding, and they are going to be really helpful when you have and are working through something that is very long and complex so that your students can create a record of what they're reading. So they're going to read something and write or illustrate related to that particular short little mini chunk that you just did. But what's nice about these is that you can also go back at the end and you have that full summary. So if you read it from beginning to end, what you wrote, you have another way to summarize and come back and use that. Storyboards or story maps where you're including illustrations are great. But we want to have graphic organizers, and there are different types of graphic organizers depending on if you're reading fiction or if you're reading nonfiction. We want to make sure that the graphic organizer that we're using is appropriate for the type of text and the age that you are working with. The next step is I suggest you read the passages or a lot of the text aloud, especially with your older struggling readers. Now, let me explain a couple of ways that you can do this. By reading aloud the text, you are giving the students a model of what the fluent reader should sound like. And for some of the text that they have to read, and I'm just thinking of Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, which was one of our 7th grade novels that we used. The historical time period is very difficult for them to understand. And then there's a lot of dialect, that Southern dialect in the text, which is very challenging to read. They need to hear it. Okay. So if you don't have that, there are a ton of available audio versions for most everything that's available now, but we want to give our students a chance to hear it. Now, that doesn't mean that they're just listening and then doing something. No, when we are reading things aloud, we also want to provide opportunities for them to reread. By rereading, coming back, we are going to give them opportunities for repeated reading in some cases so that they can then get the practice for actually reading it aloud, or reading the text themselves. We don't want to just, here's the audio, now let's do this work. No, we're going to stay within this for a while so that that repeated reading is useful from a fluency standpoint for your students. But make sure that you're using really high quality types of audio. You know, I always loved to read to my students out loud. It was something I was good at. I enjoyed the dialect and different voices. Not everybody does that or is comfortable with that, and that's okay. But find a good quality audio. You could consider using echo reading, which is especially helpful for a number of your students that are English learners, where you're reading something that is a shorter passage, the teacher reads it, the student repeats it. The next step is, I actually combined the read aloud with the rereading, but we do want to come back in and offer that repeated reading or rereading of the text. You can also do this with partner reads, giving students an opportunity when they come back into the classroom the next day. Hey guys, remember this chapter that we read? I want you to take the first 10 minutes of class and you're going to partner read it, so that they get that additional practice there. Okay. The next step, I'm not even sure what we're on. I may think this is tip number 7. Summarize the text in small chunks. Now, you can do written summaries. You can do a very short, like a gist kind of statement or a thumbnail summary. For fiction, there's something called Somebody Wanted But So Then, which is a great way to kind of pull in the main high points of the story that you're reading, and you hit kind of all of those elements. But just quick little summaries at the end of each day or the end of each reading. So again, you have a record of what was read that the student that could then go back and use. All right, tip number 8. Really don't underestimate the power of illustration. You've got kids that might be struggling readers, but they may be amazing artists and they may be very visual in that regard. So giving opportunities also for your students to sketch the scene, sketch the word if it's a vocabulary, but incorporating storyboards or illustrations, I think can be really very helpful. And if it's not them drawing it, then use clip art or go to Google to be able to show these things so that there is a visual representation. I think this was kind of an interesting outcome that I had discovered a number of years ago with students. Not all kids think about what they're reading like a movie in their mind. They just don't understand that visualizing process. And so by using illustrations or pictures or video, we're able to make that more of a concrete example. So consider that. And then the final tip that I have for you for differentiating and scaffolding, and this is specific for if you're teaching novels or a big long unit. Let's say you're a history teacher and it's been like the Civil War unit that you've done. You want to think about having some sort of an end of unit project that allows the students to then come back to all of that earlier work that they've done and produce something else. It allows for the culmination, the review, and it is, I think, a really good way to solidify knowledge. Don't forget things like Socratic seminars and fish bowls where you're doing those structured discussions in class are fantastic. We don't do enough with oral language, I think, and this is a really great opportunity to do that. And then the bonus tip, and I'm going to thank Rachel for this from our Q&A session this week. Rachel said, can I add a bonus one? Absolutely. One of the other things that you can do is don't forget using technology, AI. We've got a tool here that can help us and help our students. So get in there, access some of those. And Rachel had mentioned a website called Mote, MOTE.com, particularly for EL support, different languages and that sort of thing. So thank you, Rachel, for that. I appreciate that so much. Those are 10 really tips in order for you to be able to help your students who may not have the reading ability to independently read these complex texts, but still need to access it. And what it really comes back to our instruction. Anita Archer always says that how well we teach it determines how well they learn it. We have to bring this concept into all of our instruction, regardless of grade levels, regardless of content areas, that this is about really good instruction, and differentiation and scaffolding is absolutely one of those. Okay, so are you ready for the freebie? I have a freebie offer for you, and this is just a little thank you. What I did is I took those tips and I created a PDF for you that you can download and print, stick it in a page protector, put it in your lesson planning book so that when you're like, okay, I'm planning this lesson, what do I need to do? It's a quick little reference sheet and it looks like this. So I'm going to drop a link down below. And it is going to take you to my website where you will give me your name and your email. You will then go to your email inbox where it will show up as a PDF. Now, you might be asked to verify your email first so that it makes sure that it sends it to you. Google's a little tricky sometimes about email delivery. So if you would like that gift, please take it. Feel free to share it. It's something that I thought would be helpful for everybody. And if you're an intervention teacher supporting your Tier 1 instructors, I think that this could be a really good professional development topic for you to help them know what to do. And quite honestly, it's not just their struggling readers that are going to benefit, it's going to be all of their students. So let me close with this. I have a couple of just announcements. If you're still here, thank you. Give this a like. Subscribe and share, please. We want to make sure that the powers that be know that people are watching. Don't forget, once you're on my list, you will receive communication from me. We do monthly Q&A sessions, which I just posted this week's recording for those that were with us. So I will have one coming up in December. And once you're on my list, you check your email and those registrations are available. Another thing that is happening in December is my 2-day MTSS Institute that is being hosted by the Bureau of Educational Research is happening. And this is coming up December 9th and 10th. And it is 9 a.m. Eastern time. So 2 all-day MTSS. This is for K5, K6. But if you like what you're learning and you love my content, don't forget to check out my courses. I have a K5 intervention course, the Reading Intervention Framework, and then I have a middle school 6-8, which is Reading Reset, and there's a course there for you. These are asynchronous. I'm going to put some other links down below. You're always welcome to email me, reach out. You are also welcome to book a call with me if you'd like to chat about something specific for your situation. All right, well, that is it. I know it's been a bit of a minute, so I hope that you're still watching. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share. Thank you for what you do. Happy holidays, and bye for now.